is GBN Royal. I'm Nana Akwe, and joining me now is royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, so much to get through. I mean, it's been a horrible year for the royal family. Should we start with probably one of the worst bits, Prince Andrew? Bless his heart.
It's always depressing to start with Prince Andrew because though he fervently denies he's done anything wrong and the accusations against him are very serious, the facts are that he's been found guilty in the court of public opinion. And whenever he appears in public, unless it's a church service, and even then there is adverse publicity. Most recently, reports have indicated that King Charles has firstly cut his £1 million a year allowance and secondly removed the 10-person security team from his home in Royal Lodge. The problem here is obvious. Firstly, it would be only sensible for him to downsize, and the obvious home is Frogmore Cottage, where the Sussexes, until they were evicted, lived. The facts, however, are that Royal Lodge has 30 bedrooms. Andrew has a 75-year lease, which began some 20 years ago. It's abundantly clear that it would be very difficult for him to keep up the property, which is huge, of course, in the style that the lease demands. The problem, however, is how you remove somebody who's absolutely determined to stay. And one of the difficulties in all the speculation that's gone on about this is we simply don't know how much money Andrew has, and also it was reported 2 years ago that Sarah Ferguson, his devoted ex-wife who lives with him in Royal Lodge, had bought a property in Mayfair for some £2 million. Now that wasn't ever, I thought, likely to be some form of home for them if they left Royal Lodge. It showed that they had some money, and also there was a place in Verbier that apparently he sold for £19 million. There have been reports that there have been donors. Now, we know that Andrew has had some very, very horrifyingly dodgy friends in the past. No one would dispute that. However, nobody knows exactly where he's getting the money to stay or to help him to stay, and we don't know how much money he's got. Hence the fact that it would appear at the moment that he is staying, and there's been another report, again completely unsubstantiated, that King Charles never really intended to evict him or move him to Frogmore Cottage, that a lot of this is smoke and mirrors. And it has to be said that Sarah Ferguson herself some weeks ago said, don't believe all you read when it comes to the reports about this. And so it's the point is it's very, very complicated. But also one has to bear in mind that, as you mentioned yourself, it's been a traumatic year for the royal family, with both King Charles and the Princess of Wales battling cancer. On top of that, though this hopefully will soon be resolved, apparently Queen Camilla has been suffering from a form of pneumonia. So it really is not in the interests of the king to have further problems, not only with Andrew and Sarah Ferguson that would obviously arise were this to be pushed and were to be some form of eviction. You can't see it because I can't see it because of the lease. But the other problem is, of course, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie and their families. I mean, they are tremendously supportive. The Yorks may be a toxic brand, but they are a very close-knit one. So lots to speculate on, but it does seem he's staying.
Well, let's move on from Andrew then. Let's go for briefly touch on Queen Camilla, because I hear that she actually had pneumonia. And even though they kind of toned it down a bit and didn't let us really into what was really the problem, but it seems that she had pneumonia.
Apparently, she has had pneumonia, and this had lasted over a month, or roughly a month, since her trip to Australia, Samoa, and also to Chatham with the king. And she had to pull out, and this is the last thing she would wish to do, of the remembrance concert at the Albert Hall, and also the Remembrance Sunday ceremony at the cenotaph, especially considering her father's notable war record. There's no doubt at all that this has lasted, and there have been several engagements that she'd missed, including the royal film premiere of Gladiator 2, and to miss or to stand in Horse Guards to greet, as was the case yesterday, the Emir of Qatar and his wife on their state visit. Again, London was 7 degrees. I think doctors felt the chill would not be beneficial. She appeared at the state banquet, but she didn't appear at the lineup before, where the guests shake the hands of the monarch and his consort. So clearly, this has been tricky, and this is the last thing that the royal family need.
Well, let's talk about Catherine, because it was lovely to see her with the Emir of Qatar and the King and William. It was wonderful to see her actually back in action. She's back now, isn't she? This is it.
She is back and doing what she can, but her emphasis, as she made clear in the video where she announced she was cancer free and had ended chemotherapy, but said there was still a long way to go. I mean, it's being very, very carefully handled, because she's only attended some 6 events this year. The obviously tripping the colour of the Wimbledon men's finals. Then there was the visit to Stockport after those terrible murders, and there were the 2 Remembrance Day commemorations, and also the greeting of the Emir and his wife, and also going with them to Horse Guards. But she didn't attend the banquet, and so obviously it's being taken step by step.
And let's come down now and talk about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. We can't let them out. Through their Arch Royal Foundation, they've apparently donated $250,000 US. Talk to me about what's going on with them. And then there's some sort of professional separation, we hear. Is there any truth to these rumours, or what's going on?
I think that when they realised that they'd try a year where a lot of the events they've attended are done solo, they knew there'd be speculation about the separation. I don't see that as the rationale for it. I think they're trying something new. I think it's been quite successful. However, I do think that they're very nervous about the Netflix contract ending next year, because that links them to the $100 million they were reportedly paid for it. So very clearly, it's a period for them where Meghan has got to launch her American Riviera Orchard, which isn't proving easy. She's got her cooking program for Netflix. We'll have to see what that's like. Harry's got his polo series. In fact, they're credited to them both for Netflix. I can't see that having wide appeal, whether or not it's good. The facts, however, are that they are trying something new, and they've also released the Archwell accounts of their charitable foundation. Quite interesting that the most significant donation goes to a wellness centre, which is which was begun by President Biden's daughter. So although they've been so careful to be, or to not to be vocal as to who they supported in the recent election, only urging Americans to vote, it's perfectly obvious who. And this, again, will be seen, or some will see this as a political act.
A disaster, hasn't it, for them, really? I think they're just... and then there's Harry and Meghan have denied allegations of missing millions involving the foundation.
I don't think that anything has been proven there, and I think, therefore, we must be cautious on that topic.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eye on that and see where it goes, because, people are very fascinated by the pair still. They don't really make the headlines in a positive way, but they do make the
With
headlines.
Archwell, what they when they began it 3 years ago, they made the charity raised some. I think it was some 10 million or some $13 million, £10 million. Subsequently, the amount dropped last year. It picked up slightly, but there's no doubt it hasn't reached huge levels, and probably not the levels that they would wish, because the numbers of donors, there's one main donor in 2023, and that's, well, one. If they were really doing well, it would be considerably more than one, I suspect.
Yes, well, Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Great pleasure.